guys.
Yeah. Just with JT, what'd you like about his skill set? Obviously, long, fast, ball production, that sort of thing.
Yeah, you're off to a good start. JT played on an outstanding defense at Baylor. I've got a lot of respect for Dave Aranda, Ron Roberts. As you saw tonight, several of his teammates were drafted, and that was definitely the top defense in the Big 12 and one of the top defenses in the country. But we just really see him as one of those, secondary players that we really value. You can't have enough of them. You guys saw that the record amount of receivers that were drafted in the first 2 rounds in this year's draft. And, JT, he's just got a lot of rare DB stuff. I mean, he's 6'2 plus 195. He runs 4'3", 10.8 broad, 39.5 vert. And, those are rare DB numbers. And then, he led the nation in interceptions. He had 6, interceptions, returned, a couple for touchdowns. And, he was a multi-year starter on that team. He ran track at Baylor. He's really sharp in the interview process. He can really, really run the show, which is something that we really value back there at safety, or just in our secondary in general. And so we really think that he's, versatile to play in a lot of different places, but specifically he can play in the slot. He can play deep. How we use Derwin James, going down in the slot, playing dime money or star. Now you have a guy in the deep part of the field. You have him and Nas now, who completes the deep part of the field with a lot of range. You got, really 3 guys with a lot of gas back there that can go make plays and get you the football. And so we felt like this would just really be an outstanding addition to the secondary because of those reasons. And then we think he'll have kicking game value. I mean, this guy can really run, and he's a really good tackler, so he can play a bunch of different positions as a gunner, kickoff, just all those types of things. So we just think that we're getting an outstanding player. He's got a really good pedigree, and we're excited to get him in our DB environment and get him going.
Is that sort of the vision here, that having him back there will allow you to move Derwin around more without exposing yourself, maybe like you did last year? Is that am I off there at all? Or?
No, I think that when you play 5 and 6 DB groupings, if you do move Derwin closer to the line of scrimmage or in the slot somewhere, you don't want to lose that playmaking ability in the deep part of the field. And I think that what JT gives you is premium range back there. Now you have 2 guys back there with him and Nas, and Nas can play in the slot too. I mean, he's done that in his career too. He didn't do it last year, but depending on how the rest of our secondary shakes out, you have really 3 safeties, and then 4 if you really count Mark Webb, because Mark Webb played in the slot at Georgia. Now you have 4 safeties who all have slot flex. And so we really value that. The more DBs that you have in your secondary that can play in the slot, whether it's star or money, it gives you a numbers advantage in how you cover these guys. And when the money's on the line, on 3rd down and 2 minute, you're going to have 5 and 6 DBs in the game, and we play a lot of different types of 5 and 6 DBs depending on the matchup. So it just gives us more flexibility, and then this guy's got a rare engine back there. So you kind of his game speed. I mean, he's running over 21 miles an hour, but it's the speed plus the way he processes. He's got a great processor because he's really smart. And so when you put that, the physical speed with that mental speed, you're getting a really high-end secondary player.
Missed tackle numbers a concern, or is that something that players coming from college or pro you can clean up because they might be a little overzealous in coverage?
I think, he's coming out of the top. I think the way he runs the alley, I think this guy's got real speed to get there. And I think on his finish, he's just got to use those 32-inch arms to wrap up. This guy's making really good contact sometimes, and you get a missed tackle because you didn't wrap it up. But I think his angles, his tracking, I think the big part of playing safety when you're coming out of the top is you're assessing his angles. Hey, does this guy play with good pace on the football? And those things are excellent. His tracking, his pace is excellent. And so, and I think his best football is ahead of him. And I think that's the intel we got from Dave Aranda, Ron Roberts, is that this guy's a guy that throughout his college career really, really improved. And so we think that, he can definitely hit another gear in our environment. And then, his defensive coordinator is a 10-year NFL safety. Derek Ansley is one of the superstar coaches in the NFL with Tommy Donatel. That's a superstar coaching staff, that trio right there. And so we think he's going to get a lot better. And then he's going to be with one of the top secondary players in the league every day in Derwin James. And then teaming up with, JC, Asante, Nas, that group of guys, Vato. There's a lot of quality guys that he's going to be able to learn from.
Ficken.
He can contribute significantly.
Lindsay, I really think this guy's going to be a factor early. I think we're going to have great competition in our secondary, but I would expect him to come in here and compete for a role. I think all that is going to express itself when the pads come on in training camp, when there's live tackling. I think so much of playing, in the secondary is you got to remember that you're tackling these big runners and receivers, tight ends. So a lot of that will work itself out, when we get pads on in training camp. But we definitely drafted him because we have a vision that he's going to come in and help us.
You mentioned a lot of the measurables, obviously 4.36, 40-inch vert, 6'2", long arms, a lot of benchmarks to play, outside at corner. Is that a consideration at all, or is he strictly a safety?
We don't really see him like that. We kind of see him as a safety and then star money type flex. He has that movement to play in the slot. So when we kind of assess DBs that play safety is like, hey, playing the ball in the deep part of the field, man-to-man coverage ability in the slot, and then open field tackling, and then obviously key diagnose, communication, processor, all that type of stuff. So he really checks all those boxes, and I think what he was able to do at the Senior Bowl, they put him at corner, and he had some reps there where you kind of saw him play man-to-man, which helped in the evaluation. But in Baylor, they play a pro-style defense, so you're getting a very pure look at a secondary player, and so I think that he just really fits with how we want to play, and particularly in the deep part of the field. I think what makes him unique is how he plays deep, because he can really find the angle and he can get there. And so, we're excited to work with him.
Just from a ball production standpoint, obviously that was kind of the theme last year. That was the fumble luck aside, but just in terms of the number of interceptions, obviously there was some drops, you guys were in position, but just how much of that was a part in this pick, just getting a guy who has a proven track record of getting the ball?
Yeah, I think that we're going to have, we're going to improve our rush. Obviously you had Khalil Mack, and so when you have Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa rushing the passer, we feel like that's why it's important to get secondary players who can get you the ball, because we feel like, people are going to be sped up, and you want people back there who can catch a mistake, and make plays back there. And we really feel like he can do that. And I think with his range and then his size and then his concept trigger, he can really get us the football. That's what he did for Baylor, and, that's what we're going to hope that he can do for us.
With his speed and playmaking ability, do you and Ficken kind of see him on special teams in a gunner role? Or?
Yeah, no, I definitely see that in his future. I mean, the more team speed you can get, the thing that people, I think sometimes fail to realize on teams is how much ground you're actually covering. So the faster you are, that works to your advantage. And so we're definitely going to try and get him and everybody else that can run on teams so that we can really cut the field in half and win the vertical field position. And I think that we've tried to, really do a good job in this offseason of making our special teams as strong as they can be, certainly with the specialists, deep snapper, punter, kicker, and then returner, but then it's your core guys that have really got to come on. And I think last year, that second half of the year, our young guys really came on stronger. Now we got to keep building this nucleus today and tomorrow with more guys, that you can add to your core group that give you that quality depth on special teams.
Coach, how valuable is it, your first two picks, I think Corey Linsley and Zion, and having that kind of the mentor, one of the best to do it across the offensive line. You got Derwin, one of the best to do it,
yeah,
to kind of coach up JT. How important is it to have those guys in those positions, those leadership positions?
Yeah, I think it's really important, and I think when you get a guy that you feel like has a lot of potential, has a lot that's made up of the right stuff, I think it really reminded me a couple years ago. Utah's defense had a bunch of secondary guys. They had an incredible defense when I was with the Rams in 2020, and that secondary group that they had was incredible. And all those guys are really playing at a high level in the NFL. And I think that when I see a lot of JT Woods in that group, where this Baylor group was really loaded. They had a bunch of ballers on that team, and they had a really special chemistry, and that's why they won a lot of games there. and that's why they did a lot of things that program had never done before. And that was a big factor of it, too. We want to bring people from winning environments, and I think that's exactly what we did with Zion. He comes from a pro-style coaching staff. They did a lot of really special things at BC when he was there, transforming that place and getting that place going. And JT was the same way. Where they started at Baylor and where they finished, he was part of program history. And then specifically on defense, the way they played, you're matching up against the Oklahomas. Like, I'm watching this guy versus Oklahoma. I'm watching this guy against Caleb Williams and, all those guys. I'm watching them, against Oklahoma State and Texas and TCU. I'm watching them against Ole Miss in that bowl game. And this guy, he's lighting the field on fire. And then he had an awesome all-star game. Much like Zion, this guy was at the all-star games, and so you're seeing him against the best in the country. And then, the combine and then his pro day, you're just able to get a very full evaluation, and we really value that. And so, we're excited about the pick.
How much did he actually play in the slot at Baylor versus how much of it is sort of like projecting him into that?
He was there. Petrie did that so much for them. Baylor, he was kind of in that he was more like the nickel star, playing a little bit lower. But JT did that too. He was a lot of times in their rotations, he was kind of in that lower zone, in the slot covering, and you got to see him doing a lot of things that we do, and so it was very easy to project the fit. And then you got to see him in the deep part of the field. And I think in college football now it's a lot harder to see safeties play in the deep part of the field because the passing game isn't as deep. It's a quick game a lot, RPOs and just get it out quick, where you were able to see this guy in the deep part of the field, track it and find the angle. And, we've been around a lot of great safeties. I've been fortunate, in my NFL career, and, Ronaldo obviously having played 10 years in DA, Tommy, we've been around a lot of great, secondaries. And so we feel like, we're onto something with our group here. That was something that's really important with the passing game and where the NFL is going. You've got to have secondary players. You can't have enough of them. And so we just really feel like there was great value for this guy.
And you just mentioned where the NFL's going for the divisions going and players that have been added to the division this offseason. Does that increase the urgency to get a DB, or is there something you guys had always kind of circled at?
I think philosophically I've just always been that way. I mean, I think that really I tried to bring that mindset, to the Rams when I was the defensive coordinator, playing a lot of 5 and 6 DBs to everything and then moving guys around. And I think we've had really good success doing that, especially when you have the players with the flexibility to do it, because I think you can get really specific with the matchup and really put your guys, in premium spots. And I think that's just part of the passing game, because just because the team's a good passing team doesn't mean it's the same as the next passing team. And so what we try to do with our guys is, to kind of fit it to the game. And we're lucky that we've got, that we're kind of building a secondary where we can play that way. And I think that, in our first 2 years here, we've been able to kind of get off to a good start. And we'll see where it goes tomorrow. We're hopeful to keep moving in that direction, because, again, the other reason why you need a lot of secondary players is for special teams, because they're the ones that are covering the kicks. So.
All right, thanks, Coach.
All right, guys. See you guys tomorrow.
Thanks.